All right, welcome to the third round of notes. So if you are here watching this video, that means that you should be already through the first two sections in Edgenuity. So you've taken your first two quizzes now, and you're ready to get the material for the third section to go all the way through to your third quiz in Edgenuity. So if you're watching this, you should be about 10% done with the class for the 9 weeks, and you should already have those first two quizzes done. Otherwise, go back and check out the other previous videos. Okay. So again, pause the video to go ahead and write down these things. In the orange boxes here is always going to be your key to success. So this process right here is the process we want to repeat for each question. And if we do that, then that's going to help you for all of your assignments in Edgenuity, help you to get a good understanding of what's going on. So pause the video if you need it, and I'm going to go ahead and continue. Okay. So every question we want to ask ourselves, who wins and by how many? So I am a sports person, and I like to kind of, equate things to a sports game. So this is the process that I actually go through in my head every question. I ask, there are positives and negatives. So the positives and the negatives are the two teams. They're playing against each other. And so in each of these questions that I see, I ask myself, okay, who won? Did the positive team win or the negative team win? Or maybe it's a tie. That's possible here. And then finally, I say by how many. So for all of these questions as I'm going through, this is how I understand them in my own brain. So looking at this first example, it says -3 plus 5. And so the negative team scored 3 points, and the positive team scored 5 points. And so when I ask myself these questions, who wins, I say, okay, the positive team has won, and by how many? They won by 2. They scored 2 more points than the negative team. Okay, and so that's how I would come up with that answer of positive 2. I would ask myself these two questions. And I'm going to repeat that process again for the next one. So 4 plus -7. One note about parentheses here. Parentheses do sometimes mean multiplication, but if it means multiplication, it would look like this. There would be not a plus sign in the middle. If it was written like this would be 4 times -7, which we'll learn about a little bit later. But for right now, I would read this with that plus sign in between, 4 plus -7. Cool. So again, I'm going to ask myself these two questions. Who wins, the positive or negative team, and by how many? And so in this case, the positive team scored 4, the negative team scored 7. So I said the negative team won this game, and by how many? They won this game by 3. They scored 3 more points than the positive team did. And so that means that 4 plus -7 is -3. Okay. So this is the goal here. We want to be able to do these quickly in our heads without using calculators, without relying on rules. And so if you ask yourself these two questions and you understand this, that is the end goal for this section. Okay. Scrolling down to a couple of different examples, here are other examples of similar things, except for these ones look maybe a little bit different or more complicated. So this third example here, I read this as -5 plus -2. Well, when I ask myself this first question, who wins, something weird is happening because there are no positives here. Both these numbers turned out to be negative. And so this, if I'm a fan, this was not a fun game to watch. This was a blowout. The positive team didn't show up at all. So the negative team scored 5 points, and the negative team scored another 2 points. So who won this game? Obviously, the negative team won because they were the only team that scored. And so how many did they win by? Well, if the positive team had no points and the negative team had all of these points, we're just going to put them together. They scored 5 and 2, which means they scored 7 altogether. So that means that in this case, -5 plus -2, they're all scoring for the same team. That means that the negative team won by 7, -7. Good. And then this would be a more elementary example, but same thing of who wins here. Well, there are no negatives. I see 7 plus 4, so there's no negatives who showed up to the game at all, and so the positive team definitely won. And by how many? They won by 7 plus 4, which is 11. Okay, so that's the piece that I focus on if I'm trying to solve these in my head. You can check your answers this way and make sure that you are on the right track. Now, Edgenuity is going to show you how to do this in a couple different ways. They're going to show you, first off, how to do this with these sliders or these little number tiles. Okay, so for this example here, I read this as -5 plus 3. And so if we're following the two steps that I walked you through, we say who wins? The negative team scored more. And by how many? They won by 2. They scored 2 more points than the positive team. And so I should know by, in my head that this turns out to be -2. That's what my answer is going to be. Now, we want to get you to kind of visualize this in different ways if you need to. So if you're struggling with that right away, they're going to show you these blocks in Edgenuity. And so you can drag these blocks onto the screen. And so -5, each one of these negative tiles represents 1. So -5 is shown like this, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5 of them. And then +3 is shown with these 3 tiles, 1, 2, 3. And so what they're going to have you do is do this on a screen so that you can see basically the same thing that we know intuitively, which is if both teams score the same amount, if the negative team scores 1 and the positive team scores 1, it's a tie. Nobody's winning this game. Same thing here. If it's -2 to +2, it's a tie still. -3 to +3, it's still a tie. And so they're going to show you that these things, if you put them together, will cancel out and make what's called 0 pairs, which is just showing that nobody's winning the game yet. They're canceling. They're making zeros. And so now, as you do that, now it's easy to see with this picture, yes, we do get the same answer of -2. The negatives had 2 more than the positives in this case. Okay. And then the last way that they might try and show you this is they might try and show you the same type of question on a number line. And so looking at a number line, again, I would read this as 3 plus -4. And so asking myself the two questions that I ask, I say, who won? The negative scored more points. And then by how many? Well, 4 beats 3 by 1. And so I know that my answer is going to be -1. So on a number line, the way they're going to want you to show this is they're going to want you to start at the first number. They're going to want you to read this kind of piece by piece. So starting at 3, I would come over here to 3 on the number line, and I would put a dot. I might have to slide something over to 3. And then when it's plus -4, if it was plus any other number that was positive, I would be going this way to the right. So they're going to try and show you that plus means go to the right, but if it's plus a negative, negatives are down this way, so we're going to go to the left. So you'll have to slide that point then back. That would be plus -1, plus -2, plus -3, and plus -4. So you can see that we're going to arrive at the same answer of -1 on a number line as well. So multiple different ways to try and understand the same thing, but your two questions to ask yourself is who wins and by how many. So with this information, you should be able to complete up until your 3rd quiz, which if you have finished that and you look at your progress, it should say you're about 17% complete with the course for the 9 weeks. So good luck, and if you have questions, let me know.